Welcome, everybody. Merry Christmas. I am in London and I'm sort of supposed to be not working at the moment, as you may have guessed from the lack of videos, but I couldn't break for Christmas without having a catch up with Alex, who I'm sitting with right here. Say hi.
Merry Christmas, Charlie. Hello, everyone.
Come on. Just put that in the picture in your hand so everyone knows you're over here. Yeah, there's a bottle of red wine in his hand. One of Rioja at lunchtime. Stig is real. For those of you saying, show Stig or it didn't happen, he does happen. You really happen. You're very much happening all the time.
Yes, mostly to myself.
We've got some great comments in there. So, where it's at, baby. Hi there. Jessica Searle, yes. David Lebry, Tomac Fee, Mark James Armour, Joanna Zien, Tina B, Anthony Thomas, Jose Libero. Yeah, it has been a while. Is this Stig's Love Shack? Asks Strud81 on Twitch. No, it's not. It's mine.
And a very nice love shack it is too.
Yeah. There's a long story to it, but I'll give you another time. Can you talk about this? Has been allowed to convert to 2 flats? Yeah. If you got things you'd like us to talk about, we are just here until the battery on my laptop runs out. Because
that's a hard limit.
That's how out of the loop I am. So to those of you who are new, because I have actually been gathering quite a lot of new subscribers in the last few weeks when I haven't been doing any videos. This is Moving Home with Charlie, where I'm Charlie, share a combination of things. My insights from working behind the scenes in the estate agency industry as a supplier of technology to estate agents for the last 20-something years. A brief stint of a few years in the city as a qualified registered Securities and Futures Authority representative, futures and options broker. Mm-hmm. A man who's run. I have more business failures to my name than anyone. I challenge anyone to beat my name. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if anyone wants to actually list how many you've had, I bet you've had more. I'm also the founder of bestagent.co.uk, which is a new national property website, which is my mission to bring transparency to the housing market in the UK. More on that in a while. But this is predominantly just for fun, irreverent, probably slightly potty-mouthed discussion about the UK housing market, how it went in 2023, and how it's looking for 2024. Not sure how much data we're going to use today. I think we're just going to use our wit and sparkling personalities.
You mean make it up?
I'm going to. Well, no, trust me, bro. That's my source. That's my source of my stuff today. I'm going to start by just recapping what 2023 was like from my point of view. Massively frustrating, right? Massively frustrating from my point of view, because what I have learned that actually I should have known a year ago, but I really have learned. It's not even a theory or an opinion. What I have learned for absolute certainty, as far as I'm concerned, is that the house price indices, which each provide us with a single transaction value on which we are told or expected to think that that's the representative of everyone's house prices, in a unusual market or a housing market of unusual dynamics, those average transaction values are totally meaningless and useless because they do not actually tell us what's going on. For example, has any of the information from any of those house price indices, Rightmove, Zoopla, Nationwide, Halifax, Land Registry, have the results from them reflected what the Bank of England has showed us is a significant drop in mortgage transactions?
No.
Right? No. So I ask you, and especially if you're a cynic who thinks that I'm just a dooming, naysaying, down, talk the market down person, I ask you to consider this. Do you think that with monthly new mortgage approvals having fallen from around about 70,000 a month, which is the 5-year average before COVID, down to 45,000 a month now, which is mostly for transactions at the lower end of the market, that's a very big reduction. I mean, you're looking at 30% odd reduction.
Yeah.
Do you really think that that's going to have no effect on house prices? On not average transaction value, but actual house prices? Do you really think so? Do you really think that the cost of finance how much more it now costs in interest to borrow an amount of money to buy a house, is going to have no effect on house prices because, roughly speaking, all the indices are saying house prices
Flat.
pretty much flat, pretty much unchanged.
They dropped a bit towards the end of last year, but then recovery.
Mortgage-based transaction volumes have fallen 30%, and the cost of mortgages is in some cases tripled, but house prices are flat. Really? Honestly? Really? Is anyone going to be brave enough to stand up and say, I think that mortgage-backed housing transactions have dropped 30%, and mortgage cost of borrowing money has gone up by many multiples, and yet it's not going to affect house prices? Is anyone that stupid? So it's massively frustrating because the other massive truth I have discovered this year is that the public doesn't understand the effect of the time lag of the reporting of house price indices.
No.
And it's not even a simple single time lag concept to understand, because Rightmove tells us asking prices in its index.
Yep.
Asking prices are when a house first comes on the market, 3 months before it goes under offer, which is 8 months before it actually exchanges, which is 2 months before. It's a year from when Rightmove's asking prices are announced to when those properties, if they sell at all, are actually reported in transactions. So that's a weird
huge
lag.
Yeah.
And yet the public, the home moving public, who have they have no reason to be studying house prices. Actually, well, they do have a reason, but you wouldn't think they'd need a reason to do it. Do not differentiate between Rightmove's house price index, the ONS house price index, the lender. It's all just house prices.
No, and even if you work it the other way, so even if you look at the Bank of England mortgage approvals, there is normally a 3-month lag between somebody getting a mortgage approval and then actually using that money to buy a house.
Yeah.
And at that point, it then has to be registered with the land registry. And that will take anywhere between 2 and 12 months, being generous.
Yeah.
And then it would then need to be turned into the ONS house price index, unless you're going to go and look at the land registry one, which many people don't, because that's not what's published. It's the ONS interpretation, which leads you back to somewhere between 7 months and 13 months.
Yeah.
And even that's generous, because some of them take much longer before you see the real transactions. So it doesn't matter which one you look at. I mean, Nationwide and Halifax are simply talking about the mortgages that they've approved. Yes.
With no fall through that data in there either.
Correct. Rightmove are asking prices. It's madness.
So guys, put your questions in the comments if you've got them. I'm going to just start flagging any if they're good. Are we looking at US stock market crash? No, there's not going to be a US stock market crash, is there?
Not yet.
I don't. Well, not, yeah.
The US will be the last holdout because they are the global reserve currency, and that allows them to get away with the vast amount of debt that they have that makes everyone else look positively miserly. But it will hit them in the end. Even China, the issues that are happening in China at the moment is causing some worries over in the US because they need to keep on creating more debt.
Yeah. So just to wrap up what Alex just said about the time lag effect, I summarize the overall time lag effect as around about 9 months, right? What we hear in the news, if you mix up all the different indices, is around about a 9-month lag on what's actually happening. So the news we've had most recently in December 2023 is actually from about March, April this year, from what was actually happening in the market then.
Yep.
And that is a very difficult thing to get your head around because you think, oh, the news is up today. It must be what's happening today. And this is what makes it so difficult. This is what makes trying to work out what's happened. And also the biggest problem for all of us in the moving market is that this obfuscation, intentional or not, this opacity, this fog, this guff, is what allows the industry to deceive us about what's actually happening. Specifically, when they come around to value a house, they're going to sell it. They say, "Oh no, house prices are going up. It's fine. Don't worry. We're agents. We're at the front line. We know what's happening. It's definitely going up." And there's been a huge amount of that. And that is exactly what I'm trying to fix. So I recently, in the last few weeks, have been working very hard on the implementation of the best agent house price index, which you've already seen, which is just all the published asking prices. But I'm going to be linking it up with what I hope will be a community-sourced house price index of exchange prices reported almost in real time. And if one of the 6 parties who know what the exchange price is on each transaction, whether that's the agent, one of the 2 solicitors, the buyer, the seller, or the lender, if one of those 6 parties is willing to share the exchange price data with us, from just 1 in 10 transactions, we will have a similar sample size to when the ONS publishes its most recent, but with data that is arguably much
time.
Yeah, it's what's actually happening now. So it's going to be the exchange price index. It's going to be sourced from buyers, sellers, agents, and conveyancers, whoever wants to contribute. The data will be shared with those of you who are contributing the data. So if you're an agent, you want to know what's happening. Well, as long as you share your exchanges as they happen. We won't be revealing anyone's actual addresses. No, right? The land registry does that.
Exactly.
So we're not. This isn't going to hit anyone's privacy. But it will. The most exciting thing about this is if we can get to that rough sample size, that rough adoption level, is that it will end the possibility for estate agents to overvalue. Because the seller will be able to go look at this and go, I can see what's exchanged in the last couple of weeks near here.
Yeah.
And this one that's closest to mine exchanged last week for 250,000, and you're saying 325,000? Get out of my house. Get out of my house, you fucking liar. It will just burst the balloon of overvaluing, I'm hoping. That's what we're working on right now. I'm hoping actually just for Christmas to have a very rough prototype version for you guys to try and actually put your... And we're going to do it for lettings as well as sales. So we're going to let tenants report the rental price they're paying and or landlords.
That would be very interesting.
And so again, we can try to avoid people overpaying because they get out negotiated by agents. Now, if you've got competing buyers or competing tenants, then that is the market for a property.
Yeah.
But when it's only one person offering and the agent is successfully FOMOs you into paying asking price, which actually probably isn't what
the real price,
then people are overpaying and it's not fair. And so I'm hoping that this index will also help reduce instances of tenants being fleeced on rent and allow the market to do the market's thing. The market will still have many, many flaws of its own.
Yeah.
Problems with supply and demand and rent, and yes, immigration massively impacts rent prices directly. But at least it will help reduce instances of people just being
fleeced.
Exactly, fleeced. Exactly. Thanks, guys. I am flagging some of these questions that we'll get to. Is the price of oil likely to rise due to the Red Sea incident? Don't know. Okay, should we take some questions?
Yeah,
and then let's just to see if the questions cover off what I was going to talk about anyway. Jessica Searle, you got your question first. We'll start with you. Can you talk about the top end of the market and what is happening there? £1 million plus. We won't spend long on this, but what I can tell you, and if you look it up yourself, on all of Rightmove's most recent asking price reports, what they call the top of the ladder prices, where the averaging is 650, those asking prices dropped 5% in 1 month.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when average asking prices are dropping fast, that is the very last resort for people trying to sell who can't sell, is to just start dropping prices hard. Now, what that suggests to me is that there are a lot of people at the high end of the market who want to sell and can't sell. And Alex and I were just discussing earlier off camera how we think that in this particular housing market downturn is likely to be a lot more negative equity at higher values.
Yes, absolutely. Because those people thought that they were being clever with their money, just like the big firms, like companies like Unilever that have leveraged themselves to the hilt because debt was cheap and they could therefore invest their actual money into things that were more profitable. They found themselves now, if they weren't very clever, with huge mortgages. So even though they've got big incomes, when they have to change their mortgage and the interest rate goes from 1.1% to 5%, things don't look so pretty. So you've got a lot. I mean, I've noticed looking at properties, certainly around London. I haven't spent a lot of time looking outside of London, but you see a lot of properties coming onto the market that, are unusual in that these are once-in-a-lifetime properties, and yet they were only bought 2 or 3 years ago. I'm talking about the £4 to £10 million range that used to only come onto the market once every 30 years. And now they're popping up in a surprising rate.
Exactly. I have heard anecdotally, I've heard of quite a lot of people who are really struggling to come to terms with the fact that their mortgage is doing what it's going to do. People who are earning 6-figure incomes.
Yeah.
People on large salaries whose mortgage payments were £3,000 a month, and they're going to 6, 7, 8 grand a month in some instances, and that's not sustainable for those guys.
No.
That wipes out school fees. It wipes out.
Well, and that's the point, is a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, wages have been surprisingly resilient. I mean, I don't think many people would have expected that wage growth would have continued all the way to the back end of this year. However, I still believe we're going to see that take a downturn. But if Labour get in, they have promised to put VAT on private school fees.
Right.
That's an extra 20%. You know, they have promised that at this point, certainly the Conservative government have said that they're freezing all the tax bands. And the autumn budget, what a joke in terms of benefiting most people in this country. And so even though we've had those wage increases, in real terms, given the cost of living and the additional mortgage payments, as you say, even those wealthy, those, you know, at the top level, the mid to senior management, not C-suite level, but mid to senior, are going to find themselves in a lot of pain, especially if they've got kids at private schools.
Yeah. I've got a little thing to share with you guys here. Someone sent me a private message, and I'll just explain the story on screen here. So this is a property that was originally listed in May 22, so 18 months ago, at 1.25 million. Mm-hmm. This was listed by Foxtons.
Yeah.
So it's a London flat.
Yep.
1.25 million. A month later, 1.1 million. 2 months later, 1 million. Sorry, 1.05. A month later, 995. So we're now down from 1.2 to 995. And then March this year, so 6 months later, reduced to 875.
Wow.
And hi, Charlie, I have exchanged on this for 688.
Wow.
And this guy, he actually put, so the asking price was 875. He offered 700. The negotiation took 2 months, but he held his ground. They came down, and eventually they accepted 700. And at which point, he was borrowing, the lender valuation, and said because of the service charges, which is how we know it's a leasehold flat,
wouldn't be
688. They reduced it by another 12,000.
And the seller obviously had no option at that point, that far down the line.
Took him another 7 days. It took the seller 7 days to go.
Well, okay. When you think you're going to get 1.2 million and you end up with 688, that's quite a haircut.
Yeah, that's quite a haircut. And the other interesting thing that I just got someone on Twitter this morning. So, leaseholders, I have an estate agent coming around this afternoon to value my flat. A forced fire sale. Hang on a second. So I'm going to read it. A forced fire sale into a bare property market was not what I imagined when I bought it 7 years ago. Crystallize my losses now or hold on and keep shelling out indefinitely? Wow. I respect this guy's, honesty and coming out on Twitter, and he said a lot of people respond to that. So for those people who are going, the market's fine. No, this is a seller here going, I can see that it's not. This market is very, very far from fine. So that answers your question, Jessica, I hope. I think the top of the market is actually faring the worst, which going back 18 months, people going, the rich will be unaffected by this.
Well, the rich will be. The
ultra wealthy.
But also the people. So
if you live in £1 million house, in most people's eyes, you're rich.
Well, yeah, and that's the mistake we've been making. That's why our economy is so fucked. That's why everyone's in so much debt. Yeah. Oh, I live in £1 million house. Yes, but how much of it do you own, and how much does the bank own?
And how much do you earn?
Exactly. So all of those people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who have 100% equity in their property or 90% equity, they'll be fine. There are absolutely no issues at all. But the people in their 30s who are aspirational, or in their 40s with kids at private school, who went, but we can invest here. I know how to play the market. So we'll have a big mortgage because the debt is cheap. They are heading for a bit of a thrashing.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Can you talk about, so this is Ruth on YouTube. Can you talk about the mention of any house being allowed to convert into 2 flats, as mentioned in the autumn statement, please? So this is a planning. This is the government announcing that if you have a house, is it going to be is it detached or just any house?
No, it's any house.
You can definitely convert it into 2 flats,
So hang on,
provided you don't change the exterior.
Yeah, so don't change the exterior. That's great. Facade stays the same. No need for planning. But we're going to lower the living standard for the country by putting you into the smallest boxes we possibly can. What used to be regarded as a house that was fit for a family, no longer. Turn it into flats and then it'll be good.
Yeah. But I mean, there are places where there are fairly large houses that are fairly empty.
I know.
And if they turn into flats, then it will actually provide 2 families with a home instead of 1.
Yes, it will. Yeah, but
in some areas.
Yeah, and that's true. But the overall standard of living, the accommodation that we live in, for the first time ever, because let's face it, you used to have lots of big houses in London, and they had servants, and the servants lived up in the bloody eaves, or in the basement, and that was where you lived, or you lived in your hovel round the corner. And then we went through this halcyon period from the 60s through until the 90s, where we still had all those lovely Victorian properties, which we still have, but they're not in such good state, and Edwardian and so on. And people lived in nice big houses. It wasn't unusual for families to live in 100 square meters, 200 square meters, but now it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And the new builds, the room sizes are tiny, the ceiling heights are tiny. And then you walk into an old 1900s block and you go, wow, they really used to know how to build these things. So yeah, you'll provide more houses. They won't be very nice though.
No. But it's better than. Yeah.
Well, it's better than living under a bridge.
Yeah. Rich Cook on YouTube asks, question, what are you expecting to happen to interest rates in 2024? Can I go first?
Yeah, go
on. I'm expecting the Bank of England. The Bank of England has been pretty consistent in saying, guys, please stop talking about rate reductions. Please stop talking about rate reductions. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Higher for longer, everybody. We're trying to manage your expectations. But every week, you media guys are going, the bank's going to lower interest rates soon. It's definitely going to happen. The bank's going to lower interest rates and house prices are going to shoot back up. No, my guess, and it's nothing more than a guess, but it's a fairly confident guess, is that not even the Bank of England knows what's going to happen because there are too many uncertainties, especially with the election, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whether or not we have the conflict in the Middle East spreading or not, whether we get more uncertainty or less certainty.
Of external uncertainty.
Yeah, but with all things being equal, everything roughly staying the same as it is now, I think that they will, when they change, they will start to come down in small steps, very slightly, and it might take 6 to 12 months for them to come down 1%.
Okay, now my turn.
Yeah.
So my view, and I'm
rescue my boots.
Yeah, don't set fire to the boots. I made a prediction back in August of last year that terminal Bank of England rate would be between 5 and 6%. It looks like that may now be true. I also suggested that when they came down...
That was Alex saying, I'm right, by the way. It was Alex saying, told you so. In case you didn't hear that.
No. My piece from then is this. I believe inflation will disappear faster than many people have said. I think I used the term that it will be sucked into the vacuum of space. I'm a big fan of a website called Trueflation, which is always worth having a look at. They've been very consistent. They believe that the inflation in the UK now is down to about 3.9%, which I would agree with. so below what the government are reporting. Whereas when it was going up, obviously the government underreported, but it's wonderful. I believe that interest rates will not fall until about the middle of next year. And when they do, they will come down to somewhere between 3.75 and 4.25%. We won't see much below that. But
By when?
By the end of the year.
Oh, a year from now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think I still believe we are heading into a recession. And therefore there will be a response. And it won't be printing more money. Now, quantitative tightening, as slow as it is continuing, with the Bank of England still selling bonds buying back bonds. So all in all, I think we'll continue at 5.25 or thereabouts till mid next year, and then we will come down to potentially somewhere between 3.75 and 4.25% by the end of next year, depending on how quickly we go into recession.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to add a couple of questions to this. It's a question to you. What scenario might make interest rates go higher?
Well, if we really do have sustained growth and inflation. I mean, they won't touch it unless we have inflation. So if inflation comes back, so what you were saying about things like the ships having to divert to avoid Middle Eastern conflict, Russia playing silly buggers with oil and gas, war in Ukraine, perhaps wheat out of Ukraine, all of those things could lead as external effects to greater inflation. I think the chances of inflation because of growth in this country are very fucking remote. I don't know how I could word that more strongly and with less swearing, but not much chance there. But externally, sure. I mean, OPEC could dick everyone around. All things are possible. We are in very turbulent times at the moment.
I mean, I heard just this morning on the radio they were talking about the fact that all the ships are having to go. It's an extra 10 days to 2 weeks shipping time,
which is a huge amount of money.
And 60% of the cost of a ship is the fuel.
Yeah,
it's going to affect supply chains potentially. That would be a pain in the ass. And what would make interest rates come down faster?
A recession which is as bad as I think it may be. If we suddenly see lots and lots of redundancies in this country, if companies go, Jesus, we've raised pay so much, but demand for our product has now reduced because people are cutting costs and trying to, save. We can't afford our workforce because we gave them too big a pay rise. So we're going to sack them. And when they sack those people, our tax revenues go down. Those people stop spending in the economy. So you have a domino effect whereby all of the services that they used to use now get hit. And so you end up with, my estimate was a worst case of 12.5% unemployment. Now I hope we don't get there. But if you go back to 2010, 2011, somewhere like that, we got to 8.5%. We haven't seen 12.5% since the worst unemployment in the 80s. But I hope we don't get there. But that would certainly suggest to the Bank of England that they would need to bring interest rates down.
God, we've got so many good questions here, guys. So many good questions. We're going to try and crack through as many as we can. Yes, there has been a bit of a real price crash in the used car market.
Oh, yeah, which is always a good indicator.
A really, really big one. Apparently every third or fourth car in the auctions is a Range Rover.
Yeah, well, but do you remember the days where it was almost better to buy a new car because second-hand cars were holding their value so well because everyone had too much cash?
Yeah.
But go back to 2009, and I remember when everything really kicked off. So people talk about 2007 for the US, but in 2007, 2008, things were still okay at the beginning in the UK. 2009 was where it started to get really unpleasant, and suddenly Aston Martin Vantages with only 20,000 miles on the clock was selling for £30,000. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I did take a look at those. 30k for what was an £85,000 car back in the day. But that stopped quite quickly. That only lasted a year, and I missed out.
Right, let's get some more questions here. So that's interesting questions. So, Okay, this is a good one. Mark James Armour on YouTube says, will 2024 be as difficult as 2023 for first-time buyers? We are still getting outbid on lower priced properties or sellers unwilling to lower their price. Okay, the short answer to your question is, I think it will get easier. It will get slightly easier for first-time buyers in 2024 because I think there will be more forced sellers coming to the market, more stock coming onto the market, more people finally capitulating on price. And I think, as Alex has alluded to, expecting unemployment to rise, pay rises to stop, so overall earnings are going to be falling. I think there will be less competition among first-time buyers as well. But here's one thing I wanted to point out on this, which is that I saw an interesting article. I didn't check the source of it. Someone put on social media that the number of letting properties being sold, the total number of properties that are to let, hasn't changed much.
No.
Now, I think that's down to the fact that there are the long-term successful landlords with cash are buying up cheap.
Yeah.
They're going out and snapping up absolute bargains of people who've mortgaged themselves up.
But let's be clear. These are becoming institutional investors. You remember we had all the conversations
But we don't know that.
No, sorry. What I mean is these landlords are now getting so big that they stop being your average private landlord. They are buying a lot of properties. And actually, Property Market guy who deals with build to rent and also conversions. Oh God, it's been so long since I've been on X. I've forgotten your name. I apologise. He was saying exactly this. That he's seeing a lot of people now who have very big portfolios of properties.
Oh yeah, so the big portfolios are getting better because the professional landlords, the intelligent landlords who actually understand, take the long term. This is a good thing, right?
Cash
if you've got cash to buy now, if you are experienced as a landlord, by which I mean you know the risks and you've actually factored and priced in the risks of maybe 6-month voids in a recession.
Yeah.
You know, 6-month voids, but if you're not paying a mortgage,
Doesn't
much
matter.
less painful.
Yeah.
You are paying council tax if it's void. Sitting tenants, court delays. This is why, unfortunately, and the renters, the renter campaign, the rental campaigners who are saying you shouldn't discriminate against any renter. Well, the fact is, as a landlord, when you've got a choice of people to rent, it's not necessarily who's paying the highest. It's who do you think is going to look after your house the best and stay there the longest.
Yes. And consistently pay every single time.
Because it's really bad business to rent to people that trash your flat and leave after 6 months.
Yes.
Which, and there are lots of landlords who learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
So these intelligent, experienced landlords know which properties will rent well. Because I did this myself. Back in the 90s, I became a landlord. And I remember doing some research. I remember people saying, get stuff close to transport.
Yes.
Get stuff that's neutral, nothing too quirky. And you'll always, and back then there wasn't the demand that there is now, so there was a bit more competition.
Yeah.
Tenants had competition. I've got a choice of flats here, and some of those flats have been sitting empty for months. That was just normal, actually, at that point. Or it felt like it. We'd been through the 90s recession, but the smart landlords who've been wise, been paying down any borrowings that they've had, have been conserving their cash, and are now out there. Now is a good time if you are a cash buying landlord and in it for the long run.
Oh, yes.
Because the rental market is still strong.
Well, and also because you're not moving home.
Yep.
You're in a great negotiating position because you can just say to them, well, if you're not taking this money, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll find another one.
Exactly. And especially, unfortunately, in London, in the cladding crisis, there are cash buying landlords going, sorry, mate, I'm going to give you 40% of what you want.
Exactly.
It's ugly.
Yeah, very.
So I think that's why first-time buyers have experienced quite a lot of competition this year. Not only from landlords buying up rentals, but people downsizing as well. So the price falls at the first-time buyer end of the market have not been anywhere near as big as they have at the higher end of the market, which is really unfair.
But that's what's being reported by the house price indexes.
Yep.
Because the number of transactions has fallen so dramatically, it appears that the median or average, depending on which index you're looking at, has remained fairly constant. It hasn't.
Slightly different question here. Price of oil due to Red Sea incident. If this turns into this might be a flash in the pan. They might solve it quite quickly. They might go and the Americans might go and just say to the Houthis, "Off you fuck."
Well,
right?
Maybe.
They might. I mean, I don't know if they will or not. I'm not speculating that they will, but they have just deployed a task force there with that stated goal.
Oh, yeah. But America's been very odd at the moment. They're trying to claim that Putin is going to attack NATO. There's a whole.
I don't believe anything they say.
And Putin's going, "Are you nuts?" But my point is that America is behaving a little erratically at the moment. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. They have a difficult relationship.
I think if that situation is resolved within a matter of days or weeks, then it's not going to affect oil prices much. If it isn't, if it becomes a long-term thing, then it could do. I don't know how much by. Which would be a shame because actually fuel prices at the pump have come down to their lowest for 18 months or something like that. Question. The US Fed is talking, so this is Jamie L. So I can't.
Talking about 3 rate cuts next year?
Yeah, do you think the Bank of England will follow if they lower? I think there's a different inflation picture emerging between the US and the UK. Right. And so I don't think that the Bank of England is going to necessarily just follow what the US does.
No.
Okay, here's a good question. Here's a great question. So JD on YouTube says, so many newspaper articles reporting that house prices will go up again this year.
Yeah.
Are you able to comment on whether or not this is politically driven, noting that there will be a 2024 election?
Don't know. The journalists who wrote the stories.
Okay, so I don't think there are that many journalists who are in the pockets of politicians. So I don't think that there are politicians telling the newspapers to write the house prices will go up. What I do think is that I was on the telephone to a financial journalist from a major national newspaper yesterday, having this very discussion with him. And I said, he was asking me for my opinion on what the house price indices are going to say. And I said, well, the average transaction value is doing weird things that don't reflect what's happening in the market. So, it's anyone's guess. They'll probably just remain unchanged or go down a little bit or go up a little bit. It's arbitrary and useless and pointless. Because I did say to him on the phone, I said, look, are you aware that lower transaction volumes at the lower end of the market automatically means the average transaction value goes up? And that doesn't mean house prices have gone up. He said, yes, I know. I'm thinking about doing a story on that. Well, I said, well, can we please do a story on that? Because for people that are actually trying to move house, this is more important. You're doing a story on all the house price indices, but all the house price indices are doing is confusing everybody. And it's not their fault.
No.
It is their fucking fault when they write in the narrative, house prices continue to recover. Fuck off. Fuck off with that shit. I'm sorry. Because either they don't understand why they're wrong to say that.
They understand.
Right? Or they know and they're lying and they're being disingenuous bastards.
No.
And I want a journalist to challenge them and hold them to account on that and say, hang on, if we do the maths that we know has happened, let's actually plumb in the numbers here and see what happens to the average if we just reduce the number of lower transactions by the amount the Bank of England's told us has happened. Oh, look, that's mean the average transaction value's gone up without any house prices going up. Yeah. Oh, I mean, to me, if I was a financial journalist, this is a screaming opportunity to get a scoop and go, all of my colleagues are missing this important fact that actually this is what's happening. So the best thing you can do if you're reading newspaper articles that are just parroting what the house price indices commentary is ignore them and go out to your local market, start viewing properties and look at what agents are selling. But the election is an interesting question. I mean, it looks like Rishi's escaped a leadership challenge by the skin of his teeth.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, only because there's no one else left.
I mean, what would you do if you were the power behind the throne in the Tory party, and you know that the next election is? I mean,
well, they're already doing it. I mean, if I was a dirty tricks man, so first of all, as soon as they ousted Boris, they should have called an election.
Yes,
they should have let Labour take over and let them see the horrendousness that it will be the next few years through. Then they might be electable again. This is if, bear in mind, if I was a conservative sort of mastermind.
Yes.
Right now, they're already doing it. They're putting in place certain things. They're claiming that they're going to give stuff away, that they're going to do this, all of this infrastructure investment, all this sort of good stuff that they don't have the money for. We're going to keep the pension triple lock. That Conservatives, we've agreed we're going to do that. You put all this stuff out there, which you know you could never actually do because you simply don't have the cash. So when Labour come in, they look like total assholes because they're going to have to go back on all of the things that have just been promised by the Tory party. And that's the thing that they're hoping will be remembered. It's a bit like a three-course meal. Everyone remembers if the dessert was good or not because that was the last thing they had. Well, didn't you remember the Tories? They said they were keeping the pension tripled on. Well, now Labour have come in and we're not voting for them next time. So, yeah, I mean, if I was an utter bastard, I would be doing exactly what the Conservatives are doing.
Yeah. I mean, Rishi Sunak seems to be appearing to actually trying to pull it off.
He's not. We've had this conversation all from all that time back. He's just not bright enough.
No, I know.
He is academically great,
yeah,
but there's nothing creative about his abilities. And as for Hunt,
Jordan Peterson yesterday said that if the UK gets Labour, which it will, it's going to turn us into Venezuela.
Even I'm not quite that.
Actually, I've answered that question. So, sorry, these are looking at all questions now. Okay, Amir asks, what are your main short-term predictions for next year in terms of unemployment / downturn in the UK when considering the current geopolitical risks around Suez Canal? Okay, so there's two different things. But unemployment and downturn, I mean, I think my own view is that the unemployment / downturn in people's earnings is already well underway. It's massively underreported because there are large... If you put them all together, the amount of layoffs happening are very big. But in most companies, they're not big enough where they have to report them.
They're very clever. They're doing redundancies piecemeal, which means that they're not reported. But Charlie and I were discussing just before this, anecdotally, I am a freelance sort of program director working across IT and construction. And I have had 15 recruitment consultants come to me in the last 10 days by email, text, phone call, Teams. And they're not offering me new roles. No. They want to know what my hiring plans are for next year. So whenever you see that, I had the same thing happen in 2010, 2011. Whenever you see that, that means they are desperate. They've got too many candidates, not enough roles, and they are just trying to find anywhere where they can make some cash. So that's purely anecdotal, but it's really picked up in the last 2 months and in the last 2 weeks. And part of that is trying to hit Christmas targets. That's understood, end of year. But this is an unusually high volume.
Someone said only Farage can save the Tory party. I mean, who knows if the Reform Party are going to pull one out of the bag. I actually heard the leader of the Reform Party on the radio saying the Tories should hand it over to us now before it's too late.
It's already too late.
It's fighting talk. Right, more questions here. Okay, we've answered that one. I've answered that one.
Oh, can I answer Tina Fey?
Well, no, because let me get on screen. Okay. Someone's Andrew Lamb says, "Is it worth setting up a business that involves swapping houses for other assets rather than cash? Well, like Bitcoin." I mean, there are people. There have been people trying to use Bitcoin to
well, and there
houses
have actually been sales in the UK of houses for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that has occurred, but I think it's a handful of cases.
Yeah. I don't know. I suspect there's not a very big market for that, but there might be a niche market for it.
Well, it depends. If you've got a Ferrari GTO sitting in an unused studio, you could buy quite a nice house.
Yes, yeah. Amir asks, Charlie, in your opinion, do you think shared ownership is a scam? Shared ownership solves a problem for some people who don't want the uncertainty of being in renter but can't afford to buy. And even if it's not financially a good move, it does, provided they can keep up the repayments on their mortgage and their rent, it does mean that they have security of tenure. Is it financially a good idea? Not really. Is it a nightmare to sell? Yeah. You can sell them.
It's a niche product. I've got
it's a niche product. Is it a scam? I'd stop sort of calling it a scam, but I would say that that they do make a lot of money out of it, the providers.
It's ill-advised in the same way as people who borrow too much in order to buy a property because the housing market is too high.
I had a couple who bought a 1 hour slot with me to discuss the situation. They were so sick of being bumped around by landlords that's why they chose to go into shared ownership, which is all they could afford. And they bought a place that they really like. They've had it for 3 years. They like living there, don't want to change, but they now know that in 2 years' time, when their 5-year fix comes to an end, they won't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And it will be in negative equity. And now they're having to sell it. But now they have to rent. And that's it's a
Nightmare.
horrible trap.
Nightmare.
People who've done nothing wrong. This is an interesting point. Where's it at, baby? Says, I know it's not house related, but my local hand car wash always used to be packed each time I passed, even on a Sunday, dead.
Yeah.
Well, some of you may know this because I have done a video in the past. I used to run a hand car washing business back in the 90s in Crawley Station car park. I had a fully legit hand car washing business, and I tell you what, that was business boot camp, right?
Yes.
More than half of my employees were out of prison.
Yep.
Most of my best customers were gangsters, like guys in their early 20s driving 70 grand Beamers and Mercs and asking what I wanted to buy out of the boot. It was honestly a baptism of fire for a posh boy from a private public school.
Yeah, yeah.
It was. But it was amazing. I did that for a few years, and yeah, you're right. I've actually noticed a lot of other businesses. We went to a roadside diner on a Sunday a couple of weeks ago. It'd normally be queued up.
Yeah.
It was about 1/3 full,
Yeah.
2/3 empty. And and food establishments like that, they do not survive.
And that's the problem with this country at the moment. So at the moment, what's happening is if you go round to these cheaper establishments, they are pretty empty because the people who normally go there are really cutting back.
Yeah.
If you go to the middle sort of bistros,
Yeah.
it all depends on whether they're flavour of the month or not. But the high-end places are still heaving. You cannot book a table at Core, Claire Smith's 3 Michelin star restaurant, for 3 months. It is absolutely full, and you will not spend less than £350, £400 per head for dinner. So I keep going back to the difference between the haves and the have-nots in this country is just...
But that's very small numbers. Restaurants at that level.
Yes, of course. But that's the point. In society, likewise, the people who are safe are very small numbers.
Yeah.
This is going to extend all the way through those middle class who would maybe once a year go to a Michelin star restaurant for a special birthday. No, that ain't happening. But that doesn't matter because they'll still fill the tables. But they used to go to an Ivy Cafe or a Coat or one of these chain sort of bistro-y places. They'd go once a week with friends. They'd go to Roxy Steakhouse. They'd go once a week. No, not so
much. And you see, I think a lot of small businesses are going to be caught out this Christmas because there hasn't been that much talk in the press that actually the economy is turned. It's been, the economy's flatlining, but it's surviving, and
it's the
growth
weather.
is resilient.
It's the weather.
And it's Putin and everything else. And actually, people are getting caught out. And I think there are a couple of the big Christmas fairs that normally expect to absolutely rake it in this time of year who are not going to this year.
Correct.
Ruth on YouTube asks, if you have capital, is it best to pay down your mortgage? That depends on what rate you're on. If you're still on 1% or 2% mortgage, nope. Keep it in a savings account, I think 4% or whatever it is. But if that's the simple equation. Is it costing you more than it's earning? There's also the opportunity cost. It's a personal choice. But generally speaking, if you are paying off a mortgage at a higher rate of interest than your savings are getting, you're losing money unnecessarily. I'm surprised no one's asked, actually. Charlie, what about your 35% prediction? Someone says, Crawley in the 90s. My condolences, Charlie.
He's not wrong.
No. There was a place called Pepe's Golden Griddle where I used to go for breakfast every day. It was fantastic fry-up. But yeah, anyway. Thanks, Strud81. You my one and only Twitch viewer. Okay. I am finding it very, very difficult to. I have consistently questioned myself about what's happening with house prices, and I talk to agents and I talk to mortgage brokers and I'm talking to the conveyancers, and there is an element of the market that's still functioning.
Yep.
There are people with money who need to move, and they're moving. They're finding it more frustrating than usual. There is more sand in the gears, if you like, because of down valuations on mortgages. People changing their mind last minute.
Chains breaking up.
Job losses, chains breaking. So moving is harder.
Yeah.
But there are. I think it's more helpful to talk about. If you look at the narrative amongst agents who talk in agent forums.
Yeah.
And all of that is about surviving. All of that is about how to win business without having to overvalue. All of that is about how do you get your seller to reduce their price when they don't want to,
Yes.
because you're not going to earn the fees you need to earn. All of it is about when do you think the market's going to come back. And I mean, there's so many agents who are clinging to, mortgage rates have dropped.
Well, but that's the problem. It's like all of these exaggerations in either direction. Mortgage rates have dropped. That is true. But the headline figures that keep getting published are for people who have a 40% deposit.
Yeah.
If you look at a 75 to 85% loan to value, so if you've only got 15 to 25%, which, let's face it, is the vast majority of buyers, even 10% or 5% is more likely than 40%.
Yeah.
Well, there you're still looking at well over 5%, approaching 6% rates.
Yeah.
That is high. Well, sorry, historically not high at all, perfectly normal. But for people who are used to the 1 to 2% rates, high.
Yeah. I think for people who want to know what's going to happen with house prices next year, it's interesting to see that Halifax is expecting 2 to 4% falls, which is a larger forecast of price falls than they made this time last year.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will. I think that in the real world, it's very, very difficult to actually pin down what value's got to, because if you bought before the COVID spike,
yes,
but the house prices went up during the COVID spike, and so in your mind, well, my house has gone up 20%.
Yeah, correct.
And now you can't sell.
No, but it gives you the confidence to keep spending money because your house is worth 20% more because the papers have told you it's worth 20% more, and you haven't tried to sell it.
Yeah. So overall, on average, I think prices have fallen in 2023 much further than the indices are suggesting. I think they're down 10% off the highs at least. I think 2024, they're going to fall further and faster. Whatever the actual amount is, the falls are going to be bigger in 2024 because the economy will be weaker in 2024.
Yeah.
This morning also, they were talking about revising GDP down for the last quarter.
That's not a surprise.
Not a surprise.
We are going into a recession. And much as everyone keeps talking about soft landings and it'll be a shallow, short recession, I just can't see it from the amount of issues that we have across society at the moment.
Yeah. I've got, I am here. So someone called Alex on Twitch says, I'm here to show you some support. Single Twitch viewer. Now we are 2. And he also says, Stig will never show his face. He's wanted at least 3 of the home counters for various war crimes. Will I Am says, just seen 2 agents merged locally. Historic recession indicator is always estate agency mergers. Yep, there's a lot of that happening. Very quietly, a lot of it happening. This is a really good question. Really good question. Mark James Armour says, do you expect mass layoffs at the start of the next year? I work freelance in film animation and not sure if 2024 will be a good time to buy. My first thought, Mark, is that unfortunately your particular sector it has a higher level of exposure to AI than average sectors are. And you said, still not sure if 2024 will be a good time to buy. Now, look, all that matters is whether or not you can find a property at the right price that's right for you and your circumstances, okay? So overall, 2024 is going to be a scary, risky time to buy.
Yes.
With a looming election, with uncertainty in the economy. But if you have confidence in your job security, confidence in your income security, or you're somebody who thinks, I'm probably going to lose my job, I'll get a mortgage while I can now, and then wing it.
Answer. And as far as I'm aware, the film industry is already experiencing a recession.
Yeah.
Which of course takes time. When you do animation, it takes time to show through that you're experiencing a recession, because once you've committed, they need all of that animation completed. But new projects, have you got new projects coming? Are you seeing stuff on the horizon?
How's your work pipeline looking? So I think right now is probably one of the scariest times to buy that I can remember. It doesn't mean you shouldn't buy. I've said this many, many times, but it always bears repeating. If you can comfortably afford a home that you need to buy, and you're planning to stay there for a long time, i.e. at least 7 years, then yes, buy a home if you need to buy a home. If you don't need to buy a home and where you're living right now is comfortable, but you want to buy a home, I would be out there viewing for that rare opportunity that comes along. If you're in rented or living with your parents or family and you'd rather buy, but you're worried about the market, I would be the opportunistic buyer. I would make sure I would go out and view stuff with agents, and I'd let them know. So look, I do not need to buy because I'm comfortable where I am. I do want to buy because I'd like to own my own home and live in it. But this market is not a good time to buy. However, if the right motivated seller with the right property comes along at the right price, I'm your man. That requires a real investment of time. You've got to kiss a lot of frogs. You've got to get out there and kiss a lot of frogs if you want to find that. I'm also just finding, I did a survey on X yesterday asking if people feel trapped in their homes. And here are the results. It's really interesting, actually. Have you seen this one?
I missed that one because I was doing silly presentations.
So, do you feel trapped in a home you wish you could move out of? And the answers are 38%, no, I love where I live.
Excellent, good.
24%, yes, I am trapped in a rented, which I assume means I can't move out because the rents are higher and I've got a nice low rent.
Yeah.
21% said, yes, circumstances trap. Now, that might be family stuff, work stuff, whatever it is. And 15% said, yes, can't sell my home.
Wow.
So there are 61% of you, nearly 62% of you who feel trapped where you currently live. And so in my mind, that is an appetite to want to move.
Yeah.
Whether you're buying or renting, you want to move. And that appetite amongst people, if that's the case, if it's 60% of people would like to move but can't, that's an opportunity. I mean, is it the costs? Because moving is expensive.
Well, as you discovered quite recently.
Yes, it's very, very expensive. Okay. Anna on YouTube asks, if we go into recession and interest rates are cut, won't the expectation be house prices go up? So Anna, I understand what you think. A lot of people think that if interest rates go down, house prices go up. That is not, as we've talked about many times on this channel, that is not true. I will give you a blunt version, then Alex correct me. Interest rates are an accelerant or a depressant on house prices, which are more closely affected by what's happening to people's real wage growth. And the strongest correlation is if real wage growth is positive, house prices go up.
Yes.
Even if they're not massively positive, even if they're just consistently, modestly positive, house prices will rise. And then interest rates will be an accelerant or a depressant on that.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might make it not go up. But if we go into recession, if we're in a recession, which means jobs are being lost and wages are being cut, no, house prices won't go up.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So in olden days, when house prices weren't quite so overinflated, the cutoff was if mortgage rates were above 5.5% and wages stayed the same, then prices would fall. If they were below 5.5%, wages stayed the same, then prices would rise, but by a tiny amount. If wages increased, house prices go up. If wages decrease, house prices come down. And that 5.5% was the thing that would determine how fast they went up or down. Now, because house prices are much more expensive, 5.5%, I think now, is actually 5%. So pretty much where mortgages are now, we're at that point where they can't decide whether to go up or down. They will only be determined by wages. And actually, we have had some wage growth recently in real terms. So that's why there has been more stability than certainly I expected, Charlie expected a year ago. But with recession and redundancies, it all heads south.
Yeah. Dead Simple says the stats on housing markets being published are so confusing. Yes, they are.
Yes.
Liam Jennings, I hope that answers your question as well about interest rates falling, prices going back up. AM asks, what happens in 6 weeks' time when prospective sellers ask estate agents to jack up the asking price due to the spring bounce?
Estate agents cry into their whiskey?
Right. Well, this question reminds me of something else I wanted to point out, which is that I saw from a credible source, but it doesn't mean it's guaranteed correct. I saw an estate agency CRM software company sending out an advert to estate agents saying 46% of houses that were withdrawn from the market in 2023 will come back onto the market in 2024.
Yeah. At a more opportune time like March.
A lot of people have taken their houses off the market for the winter, expect to put them back on next year.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to rue the day
100%.
they made that decision.
Yeah.
And I think what they're hoping is, well, things will be better by then, won't they? They'll just be a bit better. And they're not going to be better. They're going to be worse next year for sure. And so sellers who have postponed their sale for next year, thinking it's going to put them in a better position, are going to wish that they'd sold now, which is why I've been trying to, I get so many messages every single day from people who have sold and are glad they've sold. I get messages from people who are trying to sell and cannot sell, which basically means they can't accept the offers that they're being given for whatever reason. A lot of agents are just grimly clinging onto the hope that there's going to be some kind of uptick. Now, there may well be a small uptick in activity.
Yes, compared with October, November, December.
Yeah.
And January, February, March are the worst. They're not good.
No.
But Q2 and Q3, so yes, they will be higher, but they'll still be down substantially on the previous year.
Yeah. Sean Edwards, you said, look at your question. I can't scroll up through hundreds of things. Just repost your question, please. Deposit ready, waiting for the housing crash. Yes. Yeah. RG Bargy says, I've seen a lot of houses come back to the market this month which hadn't previously sold. Okay, so let's just go back to a couple of the other bigger questions.
Glasses have come off.
How much nearer are we to the implementation of a digital currency by the Bank of England than we were a year ago?
Everyone's working on it. I mean, there's no doubt that this is.
No one's talking about it.
No. Well, it went quiet because they had that consultation, you see. So now they've gone away to digest that and be quiet. However, the Europeans are talking about it. The International Monetary Fund are talking about it. The International Settlement Bank are talking about it. All of those guys are talking about their interpretation, what they are working on. So, there's no doubt.
Does that tell you it's coming?
Yeah. I've no doubt in my mind that it's coming.
Get ready for CBDCs, everybody. But otherwise, we've been going for over an hour now. So, guys, unless you've got any more questions. Oh, here we are. Oh, okay. This is a mortgage question for Sean Edwards. Given the choice of a 2-year fixed or 2-year tracker remortgage product, what would you choose and why? The answer to that depends on your personal risk appetite. And the question you should ask yourself is this: what do I value more? Certainty or the potential of saving a little bit of money?
See, I think
with the risk of also losing a bit of money.
I think
it's
we're
that
perfect
simple
for this because I would always go fixed rate because then I know, and I
because
suspect
certainty
that
has
you
value.
might.
Certainty has value.
To me, that I just need to know. But I think you might, given that we do think interest rates would come down potentially a little bit towards the end of next year. Would you go a tracker?
It would depend on the circumstances in the rest of my life. It would depend on how my finances are doing generally, right?
Yeah.
If I was feeling flush and stable, yeah, tracker.
Yes.
Because I can afford.
Yes, and I could win.
If it goes the wrong way, it's not going to hurt me that much. Might make a saving. But if I was on a knife edge and any sudden change would rock my boat, then certainty has a real value. So it depends on who you are. I mean, I'm a high risk appetite kind of guy, right? I'm the kind of guy, I haven't revealed this before, right? People sometimes ask me, how did you buy an aeroplane, Charlie? The truth is quite surprising. PayPal offered me a 20 grand loan, which I took and bought Tesla shares with, just the right time, back in 2019.
You Teslas, you lucky bugger.
And that 20 grand turned into 50 grand.
Yeah.
And I sold a car, and that was enough to buy my plane.
Well done. See, I was feeling really good because on Sunday I won 800 quid in playing roulette at a casino at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And I thought that was me being real risky.
No, it wasn't a risk. You see, in the early days, I mean, all of my stock market pals, in the early days of Tesla, before the Model 3 had come out, were all going, no, Tesla won't make it. And by the way, guys, I am not a Tesla fanboy. I own a Tesla and I drive it, and I don't like it. I'd rather drive my old Mercedes or the old Volkswagen. I'm an internal combustion kind of guy. I certainly didn't buy it because I give a fuck about the environment. I do care about the environment. That's not why I bought it.
Sorry, can you
bought it.
Wind that back?
I certainly didn't buy it because I do care about the environment. I just think that the what's happening to the environment is not stoppable. We should be doing something different than worry about net zero. I bought it because it's the cheapest, fastest, safest car you can buy.
No.
Fact.
I get that.
No, I don't like the design of it. Certainly don't. It's white. I don't want a white car.
It is fast.
It's stupid fast. I had 2 Audi RS6s. It's faster than both of those. Yeah. It's insanely fast. But you could just tell that they were. So what I got right was they were a software business with a lot of recurring income that none of the other car companies had.
No.
Right? And they're selling you electricity through the supercharging network.
Although the price the shares got to was not reflective of the value of the company.
Which he said all along.
Yes.
This is the funny thing. All along, Elon Musk says shares are overpriced. Shares are overpriced. Shares are overpriced. I've told you, you're still buying them.
Yeah, such is life. I'm very rich. Yeah.
I do love the day that one of the days that the price jumped up the highest. He just posted on Twitter a pair of shorts. So there's the answer to your question. It depends on your personal risk appetite. If certainty is more important to you, fix. If you like rolling the dice and maybe they go up, maybe they go down, roll the dice. It's always that. People ask, what should I do, fixed or tracker? No one can answer that question for you. It's only you. It's like just ask yourself, what do I value more, certainty or the risk of making some money but also losing some money? It's that simple. Am I going to regret saying that? Sorry. No, I'm not a Tesla fanboy. But I'm also not going to deny that they're good at what they do.
Yes,
85,000 miles with zero servicing costs except tyres. All of you mugs paying £1,000.
No servicing.
Don't need to. It's all regenerative brake. It's on the original brake discs. It does have discs if you need to brake harder than the regeneration, which I have done. Yeah. I actually
warped at all.
I did warp the discs.
Oh, there you go.
I warped the discs racing an Audi RS4 coming down out of the Swiss Alps into Italy. And I did cook the brakes on it.
Yeah, this is why I don't drive anymore.
Yeah,
the number of warped discs dangerous.
I warped the discs on a brand new Audi S4 in the early 2000s as well. Yeah, it was. Or you just put up with the wobble. the brakes still work.
Exactly.
Guys. Oh yes, thank you very much. The kid mining the batteries. It's a trigger word, that T word. Triggers a lot of people. No, I didn't do it for I wasn't in any way sort of posturing about my
green credentials.
I don't have any green credentials. I fly airplanes.
Exactly. And tell me, how many miles to the gallon do you get out of that Merc?
Exactly. My 5.5 litre 1980s V8 Merc. By the way, it's a lot less carbon dioxide emissions than buying a new car.
Really? Oh, sorry. You mean in terms of the overall carbon? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is the point, right? If they were serious about carbon emissions, they'd say no one can buy a new car. No new cars, because that would be
Yes.
a massive cut in carbon dioxide emissions. It's a massive con.
Of course it is.
Right, guys. Any more questions, or are we going to wrap it up? Do you have fiction? Okay, Mark Graham, who I know is an agent. Hi, Charlie. Mark here. Do you have a prediction on who will be on top in 2024? High street agents or self-employed agents? It will be the honest ones from both camps who actually act with integrity, and the lying shysters, whether they are high street agents or self-employed ones, will maybe prosper a bit longer, but not for much longer if I have anything to do with it. I think high street or self-employed it's a distraction. It depends on the market.
Good and honest.
Yeah. I mean, basically, what I always advise a seller is make sure it's an agent you can get hold of. Someone you can go and find, or someone that you know will come and see you if you need to see them. Don't sign up with an agent where once they've listed you, you can't ever get hold of them and they never come back. Purple striking bricks. All right, guys. Well, listen, I'm going to use this opportunity to thank you all very much. I have linked below, I have an email newsletter that I hardly ever use. But I am going to be using it to announce new things as they come on Best Agent, on the Best Agent House Price Index. So in the link below on YouTube, you'll see a link to my, and if you're not on YouTube, just go to my website, mhwc.co.uk, and at the bottom of the homepage, a link to sign up for the newsletter. There is no regular newsletter. It's only if there's something valuable to tell you, but that's where I will first announce for people who want to help me try with this community-sourced house price index. So sign up to that. I promise you will not be spammed on that email. You will only get stuff if it's valuable. Remember, guys, if you're buying, don't overpay. Do buy now. If you need a home, you can afford it, but don't overpay. And if you're selling and you need to sell, just don't overprice in a falling market. Just don't chase the market down. And if you haven't already got them, on my website, you can. I've got hand-picked conveyancers and mortgage brokers I work with that I trust, who are fantastic. And in fact, after I picked them, my conveyancing partners won the ESTAS award, which is an industry award for the best conveyancers in the country. They got the gold for that, so that's cool. And my mortgage brokers are fantastic as well. I get lots of great feedback about those guys. So yeah, you can find them all on my website, mhwc.co.uk. And also, have your search pack ready to buy when you're making an offer. I've also on my website got a link to an offer email template for first-time buyers. So you're buying with a mortgage. There's an offer email template there, which a lot of people have found really, really useful. So if you are thinking of making an offer on a property, go and check out that offer email template on my website as well. Otherwise,
have a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, I was swinging just.
That's it. Spit in the wine, you utter bastard.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
everyone.
Christmas, or whatever you're celebrating this time of year. Have a good one. I hope you're going to enjoy it. I hope you have a peaceful one. I hope you have a fun one. I hope you get to see the people you want to see. I hope you can avoid the people you want to avoid, because we all have a bit of that.
Yes, it's all exciting.
And yeah, look out for people who might be on their own. Give them a shout as well at Christmas. That's always a nice thing to do. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Alex.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And there may well be another video or two out over Christmas and New Year. Not sure. Otherwise, I'll see you in the new year. Have a good one, guys. Happy Christmas. Thanks for all your support. It's been really fantastic. Look forward to talking to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.